Welcome to Faith Walk Life Talk podcast. We embark on a journey through the untold stories of the Bible's unsung heroines. Join us as we deep dive into the lives of remarkable women whose narratives are often overlooked, but carry profound wisdom and inspiration. From their triumphs to their trials, we'll uncover the timeless lessons embedded in their journeys, lessons that resonate powerfully with women today. Get ready for engaging, thought-provoking, and sometimes delightfully humorous conversations that shed new light on the remarkable women of the Bible. Welcome to a podcast that promises to enlighten, uplift, and entertain. Welcome to Faith Walk Life Talk podcast. I'm your host, Elder Empress. Welcome to another episode of Faith Walk Life Talk, where we talk faith and we talk life and we learn how to walk them both out together. I'm your host, Elder Empress, and I'm yet faith walking in my stilettos. Today's conversation is one that many women experience, but far too few talk about. Girl, is it hot in here? Today we're looking at the life of Sarah, a woman who had entered a new biological season, yet God's purpose for her remained unchanged. Menopause, yes, I said the M word. Menopause may bring physical and emotional changes, but it does not diminish a woman's value, identity, or calling. So let's have an honest conversation about faith, femininity, and embracing every season with confidence. So before we get started, joining me today is my special guest, Miss Sharena Soutar-Frith. She's a public health advocate and evangelist called to share the gospel and minister beyond the four walls of the sanctuary. Her life's work reflects a commitment to well-being and empowering young people and women and families. She currently serves as an administrative director at a leading academic medical center in New York City, where she oversees operations for one of the community's based clinical centers. She is also the founder of Queen's Aim, a community health initiative created to empower and support young women navigating the complex challenges that place them at risk for community, interpersonal, and self-directed violence. Sharena is a devoted wife and a mother of two beautiful daughters. So please help me give a warm welcome to Evangelist Sharena Soutar-Frith. Hey, Rena.
Hello there, Elder Empress. How are you?
I'm great. Welcome to Faith Walk Life Talk. Are you yet faith walking in your stilettos?
I'm yet faith walking in my stilettos, and I have them on to prove
All right. I am amped. I'm geeked to have you sitting next to me. We talk all the time.
Yes, we do.
We're just letting the world in on what we do on a normal basis.
Right, one of our conversations.
Yeah, just one of our, girls chat, if you will. So today we're talking about the big M word.
Not the M word.
The M word. And I know far too well about this topic, but I was thinking, why didn't anybody tell us?
Right.
Why didn't anybody share the elephant in the room, the inside secret? And, we grew up together.
Right.
And so we're both entering into a phase or a stage of our life together, experiencing some things together. And in my reading of the word, I came across Sarah. And I know we talk about Sarah as being the mother of many nations, the mother of Isaac. We always focus on the fact that she was the first woman to give birth outside of natural process. But the Bible explicitly talks about that she was well advanced in age and beyond childbearing age,
right,
which would put her right at the place where we are. And so just give us a little bit of insight about what is it about Sarah that resonates with you?
I was looking at the scripture that mentions that she was well beyond the childbearing ages, Genesis 18 and 11. And it caught me as you had highlighted it when we discussed it. But I think what really kind of caught my eye was right around those verses, The reason why the Bible highlights that is because the visitors that are visiting Abraham and Sarah are going to say, around this time next year,
Right.
she's going to have a child. And Sarah is at the gate or at the tent door listening in on this conversation, and she laughs.
Eavesdropping.
Right?
Yes.
She laughs. I mean, in just a few minutes before, her husband runs and is like, make this food for these visitors. So she's doing her little wifely duties, but she's in the cut ear hustling, as we might
Yes.
say, right? And she literally laughs at what she hears. And I thought about, not only is she at that place physically where she can't bear children, but she's in a place of transition, right? Where maybe before she believed what the Lord had to say, maybe before she wasn't maybe so cynical or so anxious, but that whole transition of life often brings this kind of mixed emotion and feelings, right? Even later on when they call her out on it, she knows she laughed and she lies and says, I wasn't laughing. And I thought about all the things that kind of go through one's mind during that kind of transition when you're going from being able to bear or should be being able to bear a child to when you can't.
Wow, that's so true. We have witnessed our grandmothers. We've witnessed women, if you will, that have come up before us, and we've seen them go through a transition in seasons, as I like to call it. But there wasn't very much talk about it. We would see outward expressions of what we would say hot flashes, maybe mood swings. Right. We saw outward, symptoms. But why do you think that this conversation has been hidden so long, especially in the Christian community?
You know, Empress, even as I think about women in general and women's health, there is a truckload, if you will, of information that shows, research that shows that often issues regarding women's health are not highlighted. The way we experience cardiovascular disease, the way we experience of community violence, menopause, those things are not discussed. Often the people who are doing the research are focusing on men. Often the things that we highlight are issues that are highlighted in men. Even if you think about injuries and sports injuries for the greater good, they're often looking at men, even though they are women athletes, right? Even my reason for founding Queen's Aim is because when we think about community violence, we're often talking about what are the young men experiencing, my brother's keeper. And so I think menopause easily falls right into that category of a woman's health issue that is not being highlighted, talked about, discussed, and often being placed on a back burner because as a society, and church is often a reflection of our society because even though we love Lord and we are called to a higher place, we are still very much natural beings and we're living our natural lives and bringing that into the church and wanting God to take us higher, but we're still human. I think that is really a trend when you look across the board of women's health and the initiatives and the resources and the attention that are brought to it. And often it is in the shadows of what our male counterparts are experiencing. So I think that just falls right under that.
I'm glad that you highlighted that because me personally, being in this season, in this transition, there are things that I experienced personally that I said, well, my mother never shared this with me, or I never knew about this. And what was interesting, I was perusing social media and I came across a post that said 10 things that are often not spoke about concerning menopause. And I got to tell you, I had been experiencing maybe 7 of those symptoms that I did not know or identify with menopause. I thought, is something wrong with me? I know I don't feel quite myself. I know that I'm a little maybe, off kilter, and it felt sudden, and I didn't know, I didn't have any answers. I think even when you go to your doctor, there's not much information shared. So when I look back at our grandmothers and our mothers, I feel like they painted a pretty picture that just is not the true story of this season of what women go through. And can you share with us a little bit about the physical toll or the physical impact that this transition takes on the woman's body?
I'm happy to do that. But before I do, I really kind of want to just share this part. I think, we're close, we're family. And so, right, we're sharing grandmothers who are siblings,
Our
right?
grandmothers were siblings, yes.
Our parents are close,
Yes.
not just in age, but in relationship. I don't necessarily know that they painted a pretty picture or if they didn't have the brushes or all of the paint to make that picture, right?
I love that.
You and I have the ability to look on Instagram or Facebook or AI Google, right? And get all of these things, just like you. I didn't know that my brain fog was a perimenopause thing, right? I was looking and expecting mood swings and hot flashes,
Right.
and I heard about that.
Yeah.
But I didn't know the anxiety
I didn't know
was
that
feeling
either.
was connected. The insomnia that I was experiencing, I thought that was because I was stressed and discontented about some things in my life.
Right.
Our grandmothers did not have access to this information that was right at their fingertips, no less being carried in a small computer in their pocketbooks.
Absolutely.
And so it's possible that they didn't know because there was no Facebook or Instagram or conversations like this to even say that. So let me just put that out there. And here's what I think many of us don't know. Now, you saw the symptoms on, whatever you saw Instagram or whenever you were scrolling, and now you know that it could be a frozen shoulder or it could be anxiety or it could be insomnia because someone told you. But I think at its base core, we also don't understand what's going on biologically, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we were to be able to paint a fun picture or a more dramatic picture, I do drama and I'd love to be able to do that. But we are really experiencing some type of chemical warfare within our bodies. And that's
love
really
that picture,
the truth,
because
right?
that's what it is.
It is. And so all these issues with our hormones, spiking estrogen and dropping progesterone and all these other things that are going on that we really don't talk about, nor do we really even care to necessarily know unless you're like a bio geek, right? Like, I am, or this is your thing. You don't know that sometimes it's spiking high and sometimes it's spiking low, right? And sometimes the very thing, one hormone that's responsible for releasing that feel-good dopamine, when it's low, you're low, right? So we don't know that there are all these chemicals being released because they're trying to make your body do a thing that it no longer can, or it's overcompensating in some area, or this chemical pathway is no longer connecting to that chemical pathway, is really causing the anxiety. It's causing your body to have these issues with thermoregulation, right? So ergo, the hot flashes. It's causing your body not to release the dopamine that makes you feel good. So now you're feeling down and you're panicking about that. It's causing the joint pain that you're like, where did this come from, right? And so inside of our bodies, there's this whole like roller coaster. So imagine being on a roller coaster blindfolded and you don't know when you're going up or when you're going down. You're just kind of experiencing it.
I love
That's
that.
what's going on from a very cellular and biological level. And because we don't have that conversation, we really don't understand what's happening to us or can't fully appreciate that it's not me and I'm a cut up and I'm just angry or I just don't know how to process things anymore. But your mind, even your brain is making some concessions for things that have been lost.
I'm so glad that you highlighted that and unpacked that, because at the very cellular level, as you have put it, that's exactly what we are experiencing, women of this particular phase in life. I can remember, and you and I can identify, we are the younger of our group of cousins.
Right.
We have a cousins group, and we're the younger of that group. And so when they were entering to their phase, I thought it was funny.
Right.
I was teasing them. I bought them like handheld fans, and I would tease them, and they'd say, "Oh well, it's hot," and I'd say, "Oh well, actually, I'm cold."
Right.
And all of a sudden, it was almost like like in a day,
It was you.
it was me. I was there. And so I'm getting the lick back.
Right.
I will say they're giving it back to me hard, And so, not only, and I'm glad that you really kind of highlighted some of the symptoms, and we do know that the symptoms range. I've heard many things like depression, suicidal ideations, panic attacks, heart palpitations. All of these things can suddenly just happen, and you don't know what's happening to you until you kind of at some point can relate it to, my body is transitioning. And so that's a physical experience. But we know that Sarah had entered a completely different biological season, but God still had purpose for her. So how do women separate their identity from what their bodies are experiencing?
I think that's such a wonderful question. And I think we can get very wrapped up in who we are by defining how we look, right? From very little, right? Our children are taught to be pretty, and little girls are pretending to put lip gloss on, or pretending to put eyeshadow on. There's a great little video. I love it on I've seen it on Facebook, and the little girl has got lipstick all over her face, and the dad is like, "Did you put that lipstick on?" And she's like, "No." But even as a little child, we're thinking about how we look and what that means, and not that there's anything getting beautiful and making sure that you have your best face forward and your face beat and all those things, but we are almost rewarded in society for being very skillful and presenting our bodies in a certain way, right?
Yes.
We have male cousins,
Yes.
and no one's really teasing them about the bellies that are hanging over their gut that started like at 30, right?
Right.
I mean, I've always been more one of the slender ones in our group, and I've got my cousins who have been thicker for years now, like, oh, look at your belly, and I'm becoming self-conscious. And so I think women have this connection to their value and their worth.
Yes.
That's very much connected to their bodies. But I think when we sit down and we talk, and you're talking to the short cousin who's, really skinny, or you're talking to the tall cousin who's full-figured and thick, when we sit down amongst each other, just each other, right?
Yes.
In our moo-moos and, just really kind of putting it all in line, we discover we're all having the same insecurities.
Wow.
We're all having the same, I want to achieve this goal and I don't know how. We're all having the same kind of stressors with husbands. It may look, a different couple of shades, but it's still the same. It turns out they all sometimes don't listen to what we're saying, right? Or whatever it is.
We identify
We're
so many
all
levels.
having these same things, no matter what the body looks like, right? My short, dark-skinned, round cousin is experiencing the same thing as my very tall, skinny cousin. And when you really start thinking about that, it's not about this packaging, right? Empress, you and I look different. I mean, we both platinum blondes, right? But
Blondes have more fun.
Always. But, we still have very different stuff. But at our base level, you and I can have a conversation and have these very same core values, these same very core experiences, challenges. And I think when we sit down and just really breathe, we're able to realize that this is a shell. Now, I may pretty it up this way or that way, but this is just a shell. Sharena is dope, whether she's rocking really long hair or rocking this little Caesar cut. And when we really begin to realize that the God who loves us and the God who breathed life into us
Come on
and
now.
the God who has called and
Say
chosen
it.
us really does not care about the package he put it in, whether the nose is broad or the ears are small, it doesn't matter. And I think when we really think about that, even the advice we give our little daughters when we're saying, baby girl, you are beautiful. And we say that to this little cousin and that little cousin and mean it earnestly because we see the greatness that is in them. We have to be women enough and gracious enough to say the same to ourselves so that even as this body changes, even as I cannot get rid of this belly that is causing me a challenge in a way it didn't 8 years ago,
Right.
that I am still very much fearfully and wonderfully made.
I love that.
And called to do great things for the kingdom and my community. And I think we've got to take a moment to breathe and allow ourselves to remember that, because I think that cerebrally that's somewhere in our minds anyway. But sometimes we got a heart issue and we've got to give ourselves grace and space to remember that, recall that, and live that.
Absolutely. And just be intentional about being self-affirming.
Right.
So let's go a little deeper in that identity space, because women of our age, we're not old by any stretch of the mean, but yet we are in that season of transition.
We're a little seasoned.
We got a little lorries on the meat.
Right.
But what I also often think about are women who would fall in our age range who haven't had the opportunity to bear children,
Right.
or desire to bear children, and having to face the reality that they may not be able to bear children. And in a society, and even back during Sarah's days, and even now, we can, safely say that being able to bear children has an impact on our identity. So what would you say to the woman who's struggling, and who am I now that my body is changing and some things that I desired in my youth have not been fulfilled?
Empress, I dare not really speak to the woman who has not been able to bear a child. I mean, what I'm going to say, I think next appeals and goes for all of us who, for that last line you used, have not been able to do some things that I hoped to do when I was younger, whether that is having a child, or in my case, becoming a physician, or whatever it is, right? A profession, a child, didn't get married, may realize that that's not in the cards for them. I really think that it really boils down to a matter of, what can I do? I've gone through some transitions recently, and it was very easy to sit in my room and almost even have a pity party and say, I can't, or this didn't, or this is not working out, and define who I am based on what wasn't working. But I have discovered in this last year what does work. I am in my new, I call it my Monique Stewart, shout out to Martha Stewart, I call it my new Monique Stewart era. And, this morning I was in my yard, I was pulling up roots and removing weeds, and I started growing flowers because I no longer can parent Nia and Naja in the way that I did. Those young ladies are off at colleges. They don't come home except on their breaks, right? And my life for the last 18, 21 years has been about mothering. And I'm mother hard, right? I'm in there. I'm taking them to drama. I'm taking them to step. I'm, whatever. My life has changed. So I can sit here and think about, I can't mother my girls who I've poured my life in, right? Or I can't have a child, or I can't be the MD. Well, guess what? I can mother someone else's child, right? I'm pouring into my 3 little cousins more often now. I can love my nephew who is missing out on some other things that me as an aunt can provide. I can go into my backyard and grow vegetables or herbs. I can start a community program that I couldn't before. And I think we do ourselves good when we think about what we can do. Because for the barren woman, God didn't call her to have a child. For me, I wasn't called necessarily to be an MD, but perhaps I'm called to have the doctorate and do something in public health that I was called to do. And for the barren woman who can't, perhaps it's her being called to do something great that the woman who has a child can't do. And I think it's really about, what did God call me to do? That's really where my identity should lie. Even if I'm lament the things that I wanted to do, really understanding that redirection by God is one of the greatest things to say, this is where my yes is, because this is where you've called me.
Cuzzy's talking good today.
Oh,
you teaching the sis.
Cuzzy had a good beverage, a little. not some hydration, some water.
Well, keep on drinking your water because you teaching the sisters today. So what encouragement would you give to women who no longer feel themselves? And I really want you to go into some raw areas because when we talk about this season, there's some things that we will no longer have the urge, in terms of like for married women, intimacy, and you don't feel like it.
Right.
How do you navigate when you just don't feel like yourself anymore? Maybe you don't feel confident anymore because of that belly.
Right. I think, it really boils down to getting to the heart of the matter. I don't think I would have been able to share this maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but I feel good about sharing it now. I'm in therapy now, right?
I am an advocate for therapy.
And, I was one too, right? Mm-hmm. But I wasn't necessarily thinking I needed it. I would tell any and everybody to go to therapy,
I'm
right?
Good.
And I thought I was good, right? But getting down to some root issues, mm-hmm. whether it concerns intimacy or it concerns confidence or whatever it is, I think, and this can be done in therapy, this can be done in having these real honest talks with the person who's your confidant, whether that's your spouse or your girls team, really discovering what beyond the mood swings, beyond the hot flashes, what is causing you to feel like you're not yourself? And really, what is your core self? Sometimes there are layers on expectations that someone else has put on us or beliefs that we have bought into that really distort mm-hmm. our image of who we are.
Exactly.
But all along, the master's blueprint is the master's blueprint. So I think sometimes it's going back to God. What is the blueprint? I don't feel like myself, but God is my definition of myself, the right definition. Because sometimes we've bought into someone else's definition of who we are and what we're supposed to be.
I love that.
That's why you can't feel like yourself.
Because that's not who you are.
Because you're really trying to be an imposter, thinking that's the real who. And I think getting down to the core beliefs, going back to the person, or not the person, the being, the master who created you to find out who you really are. I'm discovering that my yard had a certain blueprint before my husband and I stopped tending to it. And so now that we're back in the yard and I'm out there, I'm pulling vines and mm-hmm. I'm discovering hydrangea bushes that I forgot was there.
Wow.
I'm discovering hostas that I didn't know were there. The original blueprint is there. It's just under layers.
I love
of
that.
Overgrown weeds, layers of lies, layers of missed opportunities and distorted realities. And I would say, sometimes you got to go back to the master and have a quiet moment for yourself to find out what's the true blueprint, because then you can really begin to connect to that.
That's so good. That's so good. I want to get back to something, circle back to something you said about Sarah and the laughter. And so that gives you a little bit of a peek and an insight into what she really felt about herself. We in this age, like you said, even though we're transitioning, purpose has not died. It has not changed the purpose that God has for us. So instead of reflecting on what we can't do, we're reflecting on the things we can do. But Sarah gives us a little peek and insight into where she was focused on through the laughter. And I want you to really kind of unpack that laughter.
Let's talk about Sarah. We picked up here in chapter 18, right? But if you go back to chapter 16, that's when she's like, listen, I'm not going to have a child. So, honey, take my handmaiden mm-hmm. and do what you got to do, right?
Yes.
And then the handmaiden, Hagar, she gets pregnant and she despises Sarah, and her and Sarah at it, and she kicks her out the house and all of this, right? 2 chapters before we find out that she's not of childbearing age, we see her realizing, I can't have what I'm supposed to have, so I'll let my husband go ahead and lay with the man that I'm supposed to be being intimate with. There's some self-sabotage there, right? Mm-hmm. We find her laughing when the Lord is promising to give her what she's probably desired all along.
Yeah.
And she's like, what makes someone think that I can have a child? That laughter is not a fun laughter. That's a sarcasm.
Yeah.
A sarcastic spirit, a bitter laugh. Or like, who would even bother to think that? A disbelief that she can have what may have been her heart's desire. And then in a few chapters later, Elder, we find her pretending to be her husband's sister, even though technically she is.
Right.
They're not owning the fact
Right.
that they are married,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And so we keep seeing her redefine who she is based on a societal norm, based on what her husband wants her to do, because he's convinced her to say that, right?
Yes.
She's not hanging out with some king and fooling around with him. And here God is causing the whole kingdom to be barren, or at least that house, because she's in a place she shouldn't be,
And don't
right?
forget, Abraham puts her in that position because she's beautiful.
Right. So using her beauty,
So
right?
her physical appearance in one phase of her life may have changed in where we're seeing her now,
Right.
in the 18th chapter, where all of this is now come into play, which we can absolutely identify with how we looked 10 and 20 years ago versus now, with low libido,
Right.
a bit of a belly,
Right.
hot flashes,
Some insomnia, aching shoulders,
Yes.
all those things. And so the laughter often belies the cries, the calls for help.
wow.
I wish you could see me. I wish you understood my disappointment.
I could
Things
see
are
that.
not what I want them to be. And sometimes we find ourselves laughing just to keep from crying.
Oh, say that again.
We find ourselves laughing to keep from crying because, Empress, we're told, smile, stop crying.
Do it all.
Fix your face.
Yeah.
I mean, even when he sees the visitors, he runs and tells her, go put this food together.
Start working.
He goes and gets a calf and he gives it to the servants.
Yeah.
He doesn't tell her have your servants. He tells her to do it. So here she is. We're still doing these things and trying to save face. And there's some things behind it that are hurting us. There's some things behind it that are really our cries for help, some yearning, some longing that we've not yet figured how to articulate. Or even if we do, people don't hear it. So we learn not to articulate it again, right?
Right.
And so we laugh.
So how do we take back the narrative? Because I believe that we are a bridge, an intergenerational bridge, where the women of our past suffered silently. We have more access and exposure to information and awareness of what's happening. We can put definition to many of the things that we are experiencing. As the bridge, what do we say to the women coming behind us as it relates to being prepared for this transitional season of their lives, other than all of the symptoms? How do we define it in a positive way where they will have something to look forward to?
Well, I think that's such a great question. And I actually am finding that, yes, the hot flashes are annoying. Yes, the aches and pains are problematic. Yeah, I'm not fond of the insomnia. But, I feel more like Sharena than I ever have.
Absolutely.
Right? I feel
Say
like
that.
folks can find out who I am. I
Mess
feel like
around and
I can
find
say
out.
a whole no and keep it moving. And even if I kind of feel bad, I'm still going to say no and back out the room. I find out when you start making my anxiety kick up, you find yourself by yourself because I have removed myself. And I find
girl.
this finding Sharena, I tell my daughters it's called raising Rena. And I am so excited about raising Rena. And sometimes I call it Rena Rising because I feel like I'm getting higher and higher and higher. And I'm discovering new things about myself that I can do. I'm finding that I am not the victim because sometimes I've been playing that victim role.
Yes.
And I'm excited about that. And so I share that with the group behind me. You and I have a younger cousin in the group. I think we are very encouraging about self-care. Where necessarily the groups above us didn't talk to us about self-care. They were caring for everybody else. And we now understand, no, you can rob yourself doing all of that, right? And so I think having the conversations, modeling the behavior, and then even dipping down to millennials and Gen Z. And, you know, I said to my daughter today, she showed me a video and it was like a highlight reel of all these wonderful moments in her life, her smiling, her receiving awards. And I said, I'm proud of you, but not just because you're smiling, but because I know that you were going through some of your hardest times when these videos were captured.
Wow, what
Not
insight.
Pretending that just her smiles are wonderful and that's why I'm proud, but because she is tenacious. And she is resilient. And she's persevered through some very painful moments. And still is rising. So I think being honest about that, modeling the behavior. And listen, I think you and I do it well.
I try.
You know?
I try.
We are transformative. And I think sometimes I look at us and this is, to me, some of the best moments of our lives. And perimenopause happens to come with that.
Yes.
But listen, it's not the only thing and it's not my defining thing. And there's some other things that are happening during this era that are really absolutely wonderful.
So it's not the end of the story.
It's not.
So the bottom line is you may be transitioning, but your purpose remains. And that's what I love. I think this conversation has been rich. You have taught the sisters. It is getting hot in here.
Oh, yes,
I feel it right now.
Yes, it is. But the blueprint is still the blueprint, right?
No, it's literally getting hot in here. No, literally.
I think I see on your cheeks.
Okay. I'm not, and this is not scripted. This is real time.
And that's real life.
So listen, this is a new part of our podcast as we wrap up. And these are rapid fire questions. The first thing that comes to your mind, I'm just going to throw it out there and you just let us know. First thing first. So the first one, hot flashes or cold office air?
Cold office air.
Okay.
I can always put a jacket on.
Coffee or herbal tea?
Herbal tea.
Why?
Because the coffee has the caffeine that will enhance your hot flashes.
Thank you for that. We needed to know that. Morning devotion or late night prayer?
Morning devotion. I need to set my mind right before I see these folks. Not sure what they might get if me and Jesus don't talk.
How about both?
Or maybe both, but I'm just telling you my truth.
What's one thing nobody warned you about menopause?
The brain fog. I honestly, Empress, thought I was having like a early dementia or maybe a tumor. And when I saw that there was brain fog, that really changed my whole attitude and my concern about what I was going through.
Okay. Complete this sentence. Menopause taught me.
To keep it moving.
She's crazy. Well, thank you so much for being our guest. You are delightful.
Thank you for having me.
Energy. You bring wisdom. You bring such a wealth of knowledge. My endeavor is that not only will women who hear this podcast understand the woman that they are becoming, but the women in the Bible who came before us, and that there is nothing new under the sun. Someone has your story written.
Right.
And I wanted to just bridge the gap and let those who are of our age and those that are coming behind us understand this is a natural progression.
Natural progression.
Embrace it, appreciate it. Yes, there are some things that you will experience, and those are conversations that we need to have in depth with our physicians to be educated on, but embrace it in its fullness because it's not a bad thing to move into a new seasons.
No.
New seasons offer different realities, but they also offer great joy.
So true.
Sharena, this has been a rich conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Tell the people, where can we find you?
If you put Sharena Soutar-Frith, you'll come up with my Facebook as well as my Instagram. And for my Young Ladies Foundation, Queens_AIM, Queens like you and I, and _AIM, you'll find us there as well. Thank you.
All right. And we will definitely look for you. Listen, I want you to continue this faith journey with me. You have all been taking one step at a time with me, but I want you to continue because we have great content to share with you. You can find me everywhere. I'm out in these streets. I am on TikTok at Faith Walk Life Talk. I want you to go and find me there. I want you to find me on Instagram at Faith Walk Life Talk. Or if you just want to see my crazy life, you can find me on Facebook at Empress J. Armstead Henderson. But most importantly, I want you to head on over to YouTube and subscribe. Subscribe, make a comment. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your experience. Engage, because this is a conversation that needs to happen. I am so delighted that we had this conversation. I feel free, and I hope you do too. Also, I want to just share this with you. We're doing many things. If you know someone that needs prayer, or if you want to join a community of prayer warriors, guess what? We have a prayer line. Join the Pray Girl prayer line. It's taking place every night, Monday through Friday, from 9 to 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. The phone number is 770-667-1209. And then you just put in the access code 252259#. And join us. We're praying for the many needs of God's people, and we're praying for you. Also, many of you know that tragically, 3.5 years ago, I lost my son, Xavier. But through the pain, God has birthed out purpose. And so I am pleased to announce the Xavier Paris Foundation Incorporated, where we host events and we bring awareness to driving under the influence and the impact of making these bad, poor choices. But what we do is we offer events that fund scholarships that we present to graduating students, and we'd like your support and your help. If you find it on your heart to support this endeavor, please, you can donate. Any amount is not too large or small. You can donate by Cash App at $Mr. Uniondale. And most importantly, you got to always remember, in order to walk the walk, you must talk the talk. But most importantly, you got to pray, girl. Until next time, see you soon. Thanks again for joining us on Faith Walk Life Talk podcast. Stay connected with us by following our social media pages to catch all our latest episodes. If you enjoyed today's discussion, we greatly appreciate your feedback. Please take a moment to rate and review our podcast, as your input helps us to continually improve and deliver high-quality content. I'm Empress Henderson, your podcast host. Until next time, keep walking in faith and living your best life. But most importantly, you must pray, girl. Until next time, we'll see you soon.